Hello, this is the third vlog. Today we are on the way to Los Angeles for a week with family, and we're at Newcastle Airport today. Again, we're going with British Airways over there. Now we have to go to London tonight. We get in a little British Airways plane down to Heathrow, and then tomorrow morning we fly on their A380. We go to Los Angeles. So it's 11 hours, an hour of this. So 12 hours of flying. Be very fun. So we're gonna go have a drink, and then we're going upstairs for a while. We're back at the airport again. We got through the security place, and yeah, we're now airside. There's a couple of planes there. So our plane board's about an hour and a half. It's not here yet, but they should be here soon. See out there, there's a few. Should be alright. Moved and sat on the bar table. That over there, that plane, that point, that one taking us to London. Our first leg. And there's some planes over there. I'll put some videos of the planes in. There's one just over there, you can't see somewhere. Definitely from Malta. Anyway, plane takes off in about half an hour, so I've got to go to the gate. It's only down there, so it won't be long.
gentlemen, it's first officer once again. We're in our initial descent towards London Heathrow. There is a short wait before we get our turn to land, so we'll be circling just to the north of the airfield for a few minutes. But even with that in mind, we expect to be touching down in just over 30 minutes time, and we'll be parking on stand at 5:45. Latest weather, it's mostly cloudy at the moment and the temperature is 12 degrees. If there's any changes, I'll update you. Otherwise, I trust you're comfortable and having a pleasant flight.
Right, Heathrow. So we now have to wait for the bags to come off. This is Terminal 5. We're going to get our bags and then going to the hotel for the night. So I'll see you at the hotel. Right, Thistle. We're at the Thistle for the night here. And sorry if you can hear the noise of planes going over throughout the night. There's a few planes out there somewhere. But anyway, tomorrow we go to America for 11 hours on the A3, which is usually pretty good. The pod was good, I didn't film it because it was too dark. And tomorrow I will. I will have a glass of water. I'll see you later. Whatever happens tonight, I'll see you later. Right at Thistle Hotel, watching the planes at Heathrow. There's one taking off over pretty dark. You can hear it. It's going up there somewhere. I'm watching them. I'm getting tea. See, there's Terminal 5 over there, and the control tower. This is the view from the Thistle here. So I'm gonna get some tea, and I'll show what's going on back in the room later. Right, it's about 9 o'clock. I'm gonna go to bed now because I have to get up like 5. And tomorrow we go to America. So I'll see everybody tomorrow at breakfast or something. Wake me up. I'm not going to wake up at 5. Good night. I've reached Heathrow, and this is happening. This is what happens when you have a family member who insists on packing everything. So we're probably here for about 6 hours repacking the suitcases. I'll see what happens. Right, we're now at the airside side, and we're going to go on the plane soon. In about an hour. So I'll see everybody on the plane, I guess, to the airport. I've got a long flight to go, which will be tiring. So I'll see everybody on the plane. crossing America's coast, Nova Scotia. So we're about to go over Canada soon. And one movie down. I've had to sleep yet. I probably will sleep. Everyone's got a little window blind shut. I'm watching Wreck-It Ralph for it because there's nothing else to do. There's no Wi-Fi. It's not working today. Pasta as well, and ice cream to give you back. So yeah, that was that. We'll be in Los Angeles in about 5 hours, so we're just past halfway. It's the next day. Last night I didn't film much last night, but today we've gone to the Queen Mary over there in Long Beach, and we're going to go and explore that, and apparently it's really haunted. I think that's true. And then we're going to go on the beach, I think, or something like that. And this is the family here. Derek, Arm and Erica.
To get tickets from that building right there.
And my mum and dad. And we'll go on board the ship over there. So we're gonna go there. It's also a submarine here. It's Long Beach there. But yeah, there's a submarine here. But look at that. Okay, we're on board the Queen Mary now. We've got 3 tours, I think. The first one is the paranormal tour, because this ship is really haunted apparently. And that starts in about 3 minutes, and it shows you around the most like haunted places on the ship. And I'm really looking forward to that. So that should be brilliant. And you'll see how they burrow. Oh my god, yeah, look, it's all curved. Oh god. Is that normal? Is that? Okay. Okay, we're on the Mauritania suite, and this is the third class area. Now, the tour guide said there's a lady who was sat in a chair, and she was sat just there, and she was in an apparition for about 10 minutes, and it's the longest apparition they've ever seen on the ship. And there's also 58 confirmed deaths on board. Confirmed being because it was in the war, a lot of people were killed and they weren't really sure. But the majority of deaths were from illness and things like that. So we're going to go down 3 decks on this tour. It should be interesting. Very interesting.
To be the purser's desk. The purser, like a concierge at a hotel, who's in charge of the maids, the stewards, and organizing a lot of the social activities on board. The portside necessities shop was the bank. The starboard lounge was the doctor's office. Both sides can be used for the first-class passengers to board the ship. And here on the starboard side, to replace the steel hatches with windows, you now have a fantastic view of downtown Long Beach. As you walk around on your own, you may come across a couple of these ghost sighting plaques. They give the details of what people have experienced in different areas. I'll give you the general idea of what this one says. There was a mother and daughter exploring the ship. They decided to take a break here in the starboard lounge. Just sitting in the chairs, chatting, nobody else is around. The mother claimed she could hear a soft melody coming from this original piano. They are not the first or last people to make that claim. A lot of our hotel guests were on a late night expedition trying to find an ice machine, And water advising told us that they have seen the bench shift on its own, and then they will also hear a soft melody. We don't know who the ghost pianist is, but the music is thought to accompany a ghost that we call the Lady in White. Some believe that she was a war bride. Right after World War II ended, the Queen Mary's new job was to bring all the American GIs, sweethearts, from the United Kingdom to the United States. The catch was, the only way these ladies got off the ship and stayed in the States was if their soldier came to claim them. It's believed the Lady in White was a war bride who was never claimed. Nobody that I've ever talked about it seems to think that she died on board. Some parapsychologists think that the devastation of being left behind trapped her spirit here. Whatever the reason, wherever this piano goes, and it's at a few different homes throughout the ship, people tell us that they see the Lady in White in a wedding dress dancing alone as if she's waiting for a new partner. Now, folks, we got to take some photos of the piano, or just this area in general. Go ahead, and then we'll move up.
The Queen cuts the ribbon which breaks a bottle of Empire wine over number 534.
Attendants inform me that this lady's room is haunted by a ship's officer. In this man's defense, when the Queen Mary was at sea, these restrooms were the other way around. As far as the officer's concerned, the ladies are walking into the men's room. But who is the ship's officer? Some believe that this was an incident in 1949. Second Officer William Stark died by accidentally drinking carbon tetrachloride in industrial cleaning solution. There was a flu going through the ship. Stark and his regular steward were both laid up. So there was a substitute steward assigned to Stark who brought him a glass of gin, or at least what he thought was a glass of gin. Stark shot it and died 3 days later because the substitute steward was not aware that the regular steward kept the carbon tetrachloride in a gin bottle under the sink. Now, one of our newer guides believes that the ghost of Stark has been spotted up in the officers' quarters, but he's far more often reported being seen just roaming the decks of the ship. Moving forward is the Queen Mary's fire station, using the old CO2 canisters. Fire was a very real concern on the ship of beautiful woods. This, also not where it belongs, it should be at the bottom of the ship. There were a lot of safety lessons taken from the Titanic when the Queen Mary was built. One of the new safety features, 38 watertight hatches. In the event of a hull breach or a fire, these hatches, which were remotely controlled from the wheelhouse, would slam shut with 700 pounds of hydraulic pressure in less than a minute. Working the machine areas could get monotonous. If it was smooth sailing, meaning no real issues to tend to, the engineers pretty much just stood around waiting for their shift to end. So during fire drills, they invented a brilliant game called Chicken. While the hatches were closing, they would jump back and forth through the hatchway to see how many times they could make it through before the hatch slammed shut. 1966, on a very foggy day, just as a precaution, the captain ordered all the hatches closed. A few moments later, some engineers walked down into the aft engine room to find an 18-year-old fireman crushed in hatch 13. They got him out, took him to the infirmary, but he died shortly thereafter. And we now get reports people will see a young man in overalls who simply fades from view. Nobody knows for sure how he got caught in the hatch, because he was down there by himself. There are those who believe he was playing chicken, but there are others who think he was coming back for a tool that he had dropped and he misjudged the timing of the door. Because we also get reports of people hearing him whisper, "Have you seen my wrench?" Folks, you want to take some photos of the hatch? You want to pose with the hatch? Go ahead. When you're done with this area, come back to the stairs. Children in there laughing or playing. Today it's just a storage closet. Nothing in there but boxes. Here we've enlarged, we've enlarged a photo of the Queen Mary arriving in New York Harbor for the very first time, June 1st, 1936. As you can tell by her entourage, this was a pretty big deal. The Queen Mary did not have a steerage class like you see in the movie Titanic. Nobody would be sleeping in the boiler rooms or with the luggage or anything silly like that. It was only first, second, and third class. The way they broke up this ship was not by deck, it was by the smoothness of the ride. First class was the center of the ship because that was the smoothest ride. Second class was the stern, the back of the ship. They had to deal with engine vibrations. Third class, the bow, the forward end. By far the roughest ride as the Queen Mary bounced across the waves. So the third class staircase had two major design flaws. It's at a really high angle and it's facing towards the bow. That became a problem when the Queen Mary hit rough water and started to climb a large wave, because then the angle of the stairs goes from 45 to 90 degrees. There are a number of documented cases of third-class passengers being tossed off of this staircase, at least one of a man being thrown against the wall, eventually passing away from his injuries. So now we have the man in black. This is a shadowy figure that will walk up or down the stairs, turn the corner, and then just disappear. One more quick fun fact before I move on. The little brass speed bumps were put in after the war to discourage third-class children from sliding down the banister. The kids turned out to be smarter than the crew gave them credit for. They grabbed the pillows out of the room and used them as sleds. We're heading all the way to the front of the ship. Cargo hold known as the rope locker. The space just before that has been taken over by Aidan Sinclair. He's now a resident magician. Usually Thursdays through Sundays, he hosts his theatrical seance in this space. Through magic tricks, he convinces you you're communicating with the dead. We're gonna cut through his cocktail lounge in a moment, but I want to direct your attention to this wall on the right. We did not do this. Aidan took it upon himself to put all of the recorded deaths in chronological order. The way we're going, it's in reverse order. First photograph you're gonna see is a chef who died on the last great cruise. That's what they called the trip, sailing from Southampton to Long Beach with passengers on board. The Queen Mary was built before air conditioning was really a thing. Across the North Atlantic all the time, that's not a big deal. But once you get to the equator, the Queen Mary turns into a steel oven. This chef died of heat stroke. He was also the last burial at sea. I bring him up because February 2017, one of our security guards, Gary, was running around telling anyone who would listen he just had his very first paranormal experience in the decade that he's worked here. He told us he was doing his morning rounds, so 6, maybe 7 a.m. He's walking through one of the kitchens. This big cart of trays rolled out in front of him, and he wanted to yell at somebody, hey, that's not safe. But there was nobody else in the kitchen. The cart turned to the left, it continued to roll uphill, made a right and a left around a corner, and came to a stop on its own. Gary is now terrified of all of the carts on board the ship, but we're pretty sure that was just the chef going about his daily routine. Now folks, this is gonna zig and zag on me a little bit. When you reach the end of the photographs, make a left around the podium past the bar, keep walking in the darkness until you reach the orange fire hose. I'll meet you there. Good luck. Pass the door back.
What did he say? I don't know. Oh, God. At least there's light. At least there's light. You want to go front? Yes, please. Like push you down. The ghost can attack me. Yes. Good. Oh.
It's going down.
Oh my God. Imagine going where it's storming. Oh, what's in there? Oh, it's unlucky. Oh. Oh, this is lightning. Oh my, we're in the bow now. Reached the bow.
There's also a rope and pulley system that could lower the big steamer chunks down here. It's rumored that during World War II, prisoners of war were kept in the cargo hold, and they may have died from heat exhaustion or a failed escape attempt, where they're climbing up the ladder, Queen Mary hits a wave, and they fall back down. We have received reports during our paranormal ship walk tour, which is the extended nighttime version of this, that guests will be standing around here, they look down, I think they see faces looking back up. They hear unintelligible whispers, or they feel cold hands grabbing at their ankles. I don't want to dismiss any paranormal theories on this tour, but everything that I've read and been told by historians says the prisoners of war were kept at the back of the ship. So the reason I bring ghost tours in here has nothing to do with the cargo hold, and everything to do with the bow. This is as close as we can get to the bow inside the ship, and it was the site of a horrific accident during World War II. As I said, the Queen Mary was the fastest ship in her day. There was nothing on the water that could keep up with her. When she bring the soldiers back and forth, she was mostly on her own. There would be a small military escort of destroyers and cruisers to see her a few miles out of New York. A second military escort would be waiting off the coast of Ireland to bring her safely into Scotland. But for the 5 days in between, she had to rely on her speed and a zigzag cruising pattern. The zigzag was to avoid torpedoes. There was no such thing as a missile lock in the 1940s. Fire a torpedo, it only went one way. To avoid being sunk, the Queen Mary would change direction every couple of minutes. October 2nd, 1942, off the coast of Northern Ireland, there was a collision between the Queen Mary and one of her escorts, the HMS Curaçao. The HMS Curaçao was a 4,000-ton cruiser. The Queen Mary, an 81,000-ton ocean liner. The Curaçao drifted in front of the Queen Mary, and the Queen Mary cut the Curaçao in half. In less than a minute, both halves were engulfed in flames. 5 minutes after that, the Curaçao was lost beneath the Atlantic Ocean. There's nothing anyone on board the Queen Mary could do to help for 2 reasons. First, the captain was under strict orders not to stop until all of his charges arrived safely at their final destination. And at the time, there was 10,000 soldiers on board. The other reason is, to come to a complete stop, would have taken the Queen Mary 10 miles. There were 101 survivors. They were picked up by other members of the military escort. But we get reports from our engineering crew that late at night, or even if it's just quiet enough, they can hear a scraping sound of metal against metal, or frantic shouting if something's gone horribly wrong. Parapsychologists think that is the 338 sailors who went down with the Curaçao, reliving the accidents over and over again. So this is probably the most concentrated area of paranormal energy. Now, folks, if you want to move closer and take pictures, watch your heads and be very careful around those ropes. If you drop something down here, it is gone forever. There's also nodding, wishing well. Please don't put points. We're going to move on. We wait here by the chairs. All right.
Something little air in my mouth. Like, it felt like a fly. It touched my tongue. When I spat it out, there was nothing there. Oh, I'm back in this haunted room again. That's a cool draft there. Oh.
I think this is part of the Dark Harbor tour too. Yeah. At night.
Yeah. Computer that was giving me comfort. All the deaths on board. So there's music playing and that's not me, it's just in the background. There's the cook the guy was on about. Died November 15th, 1967. Heart stroke. What objects do you heart feeling?
Special type shows, or the BuzzFeed video that featured the Queen Mary. You may have already heard about room B340, which is supposed to be the most haunted room on the ship. We were told to stop putting tours into it because it was being renovated. They were told to stop talking about it because people were coming off the tours and disturbing the guests that were staying in the room. And then the same people who said, don't go in there, stop talking about it, went on the news and told the entire world, come stay in the haunted room. So the new compromise is that we can't talk about it, it's not in front of the room. We're going to pass it in a moment. It's not marked in any way. As soon as the ghost shows made B340 famous, people started breaking into it and stealing things. Their favorite thing to steal was the nameplates that said B340, so we stopped replacing them. First ghost story about that room came from the 1960s. She looked up, saw the silhouette of a man standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed, the man disappeared. Her scream got the full attention of the steward, who ran up the hall into her room. Once she calmed down enough to explain what had happened, the steward explained that when he passed her room, he didn't see anybody go in, and he didn't pass anybody in the hall on his way back. You jump forward to the 1980s, the whole space is a standard hotel room. A housekeeper went in to change the linens. She stepped out to get some towels for the bathroom, and when she went back in, she found the sheets on the bed that she had just made in a pile in the middle of the floor. All of the activity in B340 is attributed to a death reported in 1949. Staff captain walked in the room, discovered the passenger had passed away in his bed. Cause of death? Unknown. Whoever this gentleman was, we just call him Walter. He's the ghost that's believed to haunt V340. The room was discontinued from renting because of the constant complaints from hotel guests. You would wake up to see the lights in the bathroom turning on and off by themselves. Guests would leave the room, come back, and the water would be running. Or they would be laying in bed, feel somebody sit next to them, and whisper, "I'm cold." So in 1988, the hotel said, "Enough," and they shut it down. Pretty much every day since then, there was talk of restoring V340 and renting it out as the haunted room, which is what we're now doing. It's a mini suite. You have to sign a waiver first, and it goes for about $1,000 a night. We'll continue down B-deck. Some of you watch your head.
And it was this room right here.
I think it's this one here on the right.
I thought it was right at the end of the corridor.
No, I think it's here. I think that's it there.
I think that's it there. I went into that one before.
Handrails, bakelite being one of the earliest forms of plastic. The Queen Mary was being built, the arrogance of man decided they made the ship so big she would have no trouble with the waves of the Atlantic Ocean. Eventually she was built without these handrails. At the end of their first real storm in October of 1936, a dozen people had to be rushed to the hospital for major head injuries. After that, they installed 20 miles of brand new bakelite handrails. When the ship did inevitably pitch and roll, just hold on for dear life. I told you that story to tell you this story. In 2004, there was a family exploring the ship. They're walking down B-deck towards the first-class staircase, just like we are. They couldn't shake the feeling somebody was following them, even though there were only people in the hall at the time. Right here, they stopped moving to feel like there was really a presence nearby. A moment later, the grandmother stumbled back against the wall, completely out of breath and white as a ghost, no pun intended. She said she saw a woman float by her and disappear through the opposite wall. Those two stories are not necessarily related because there's a theory you don't have to die someplace to haunt it. It's thought that instead of ascending to a higher plane of existence, some spirits may choose to return to an area where they had some of their fondest memories. The woman who disappeared through the wall may not have been a casualty of the storm, but a happy ghost returning to her old stateroom. I want to know. Out in the pool area is because it's part of our $23 million restoration project. After 48 years of literally thousands of people walking through on tours, the tiling is cracking everywhere. Until we can figure out how to save what's left and fix what's broken, nobody goes in. But this was the original entrance to the first-class swimming pool. We've not been able to use it as a pool since the ship came to Long Beach. California state code dictates that pools cannot be deeper than 3.5 feet at the shallow end. The first and second class pools are 6 feet at the shallow end. The second class pool turned into Royal Theater, which is now our 4D theater. The first class pool became a centerpiece for all of our ghost-related material. That is not water in the pool. It's a ripple projector intended to make it look creepy. Probably our most infamous spirit is believed to haunt the first class pool. A little girl that everyone refers to as Jackie. She's somewhere between the ages of 5 and 8 years old. She's always described as a little girl in a sailor dress with blonde hair that a lot of people think was a second-class passenger who drowned in the second-class pool. The thinking is, when that pool's converted to the theater, she upgraded herself to the first-class pool. People used to tell us that they would see Jackie popping her head around the columns or up over the railings like she's playing peekaboo or hide-and-seek with the guests. We had a few reports of little wet footprints coming out of the pool walking along the deck. Some of the guests told me they thought they felt a cold little hand take hold of theirs. But the most consistent and frequent report that we get anywhere on the ship is the sound of a little girl singing in this area. She is a very playful spirit. Now, we still get fairly regular reports from hotel guests and crew. They've had paranormal experiences on board. I don't think a month goes by where I don't have hotel guests tell me there were shadow people in the room, or they woke up to hear the doors and dresser drawers opening and closing by themselves. My new favorite, a gentleman told me somebody grabbed him by the ankle and tried to pull him out of bed. Now, believe it or not, folks, I am not here to convince you that the ship is haunted. I would much rather let people go exploring and then tell me if you think this ship is haunted. We're on our deck. We're going into the engine room, the Churchill exhibit, and the 4D theater. You're going to walk out the doors and make a left across that big gangway. If you need to get back to the tour center, either walk up the first-class staircase 4 decks or take the ship's elevators to P for promenade. If you need directions any place specific, you have questions, come on over, we'll chat for a bit. But other than that, if you enjoyed our time together, my name is Bill. You hated this tour? My name is Sean. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
I am happy to name the ship the Queen Mary.
That was a paranormal tour, and it was absolutely brilliant. we now have to go and get the second tour somewhere. I don't know where we have to go for that. I think this one takes us down to the boiler room or somewhere like that. But over here is the first class swimming pool, and a girl died somewhere here, and she haunts apparently in there. She's called Jackie. She's about 6 years old. You can see that in these pictures. That's what it used to look like there. There's the doorway. There's the pool. That's what it looked like.
You can actually see it.
See the reflection in the ceiling.
Cannot open it. But you cannot open it. It makes it go faster.
You never know, it might be a ghost in the elevator.
Come in.
Oh my god.
Come
There's a
inside.
handprint on the. Hello, lift ghost. Oh, why is that open? Is that even supposed to be open? They're double-sided?
Oh, it looks like this was the old one.
Also, George, even
Where in
first the
case that
camera.
door opens.
Ghost come in with us? No, it doesn't.